I want to jump to Tesla Q3 forecast. Okay, so we got the Q2 numbers, somewhat not released yet, but soon. A lot of speculation on what we're going to see there in terms of profits based on deliveries and based on total production. Obviously, Bitcoin is a play here, and it's an issue with where Tesla has placed some of their treasury. What are your thoughts on that play for Tesla? Was that a good thing? Do you think this is going to play out in the long run? Where is your head on this one?
I think Bitcoin is a fairly trivial factor in Tesla's future. It's good that they're experimenting with different things,
Right.
but if you look at the total Bitcoin investment was something like 0.1% of the market cap, or 0.2% of the market cap of the company. It's not a big deal. What's coming for, I would say Q2 is more important in the short run, obviously, is we know the delivery number was around 201,250, if I'm not mistaken. And then I think you're probably going to add a little bit. So it's going to be 201,500. Maybe it'll be up to 202,000, but still 202,000 vehicles. What's going to be interesting is what's the average selling price and what's the vehicle revenue. So the video I released this morning, I talked about this a little bit. I'm expecting vehicle revenue for Q2 to be over $10 billion for the first time, right? Because you went from 184,000 deliveries to 201,000 deliveries. You added 17,000 deliveries. You had over $9 billion in revenue before. And I think the average selling price is up because you've added some plaids, right? So the 2,000 plaids
increased price 4 times on the Model Y.
And increased prices, and they stopped selling standard range Model Y.
Yeah.
So they shifted the mix higher, both with plaid and with eliminating the lower end Model Ys, and they increased the number of Model Ys versus Model 3s, which is a higher price vehicle.
You might be right.
I think we're going to see, I have my number at like $10.3 billion in auto revenue. That doesn't tell us total revenue. I think total revenue is typically 15% of auto revenue, but it's hard to predict that. But so then the question is profitability. And I interviewed James Stevenson recently, and I included that in my video, parts of that in my video this morning. He is saying that as the mix of vehicles shifts heavier into Shanghai vehicles are more profitable than Fremont vehicles because the cost of producing vehicles in China is so much lower. So for Q2, we're going to see a little bit of a shift, and we're going to see a little bit of increase in profit. So profit is going to grow faster than revenue is the point. So if the revenue jumps 10%, the profit maybe jumps 15 or 20%, and that's important. But now you go to Q3 and the mix shifts even heavier. And you have a lot more plaids, a lot more Model S's and X's, which significantly increases revenue and margin on those vehicles, which is still a small share. Then you get to Q4, and Q4, Berlin and Texas start ramping. And that's when Berlin and Texas really start to ramp, that's when the profitability really starts to skyrocket, because now you're no longer exporting vehicles from China to Europe. You're making the vehicles in Europe, and you don't have that shipping cost anymore. And you're no longer exporting vehicles from Fremont. European vehicles come from the European factory, Asian vehicles come from the Asian factory, and American vehicles come from the American factory, and you've massively reduced your shipping cost. And by getting your supply chain more local, because Fremont's supply chain is not as local as Shanghai, Berlin, and Texas, as you shift the supply chain more local, you're reducing your cost of producing. Berlin and Texas have a lower cost of production because they're more efficient factories. All of these things are going to shift profitability higher. So James is pushing EBITDA up around 2.6 billion in Q4. No, sorry, GAAP. I think that's GAAP net earnings. I think his EBITDA is over 3 billion in Q4, and his GAAP net earnings is around 2.6 billion. And what I see going forward is you get into 2022, and this is when it really takes off. And for people who want the full story, check my video this morning. But when you get to the end of Q4 2022, I think we're going to see quarterly Q4 GAAP earnings over 5 billion, maybe over $6 billion. Okay. And this is where you start to get to, okay, let's annualize that and say earnings are 25 billion a year. And then let's give it a 100 price earnings ratio. And now you have a share price of $2,500 a share.
Sure.
Right. And that's the key point of my video for this morning. And you get more detail if you watch it.
So you're thinking share price 2,500 by end of 22?
Yes.
So based on their current trajectory, both with earnings, the shift in EBITDA because of China, which could reposition their profitability, obviously, So really, $100 million hit from Bitcoin would be
It's a drop in the bucket.
minuscule. Yeah, minuscule.
No, and I think you got to recognize too, those numbers I just gave assume no change in FSD between now and the end of 2022. If FSD actually hits, and the FSD take rate starts going up, so right now it's somebody estimated it was 15% of the vehicles get FSD. If that goes to 25%, well, you just added, another $1,000 a vehicle. If it goes to 50%, well, you just added a ridiculous amount of money.
Yeah.
$3,500 a vehicle. And then, in my fantasy world, when the robotaxi network spools up, now all of a sudden you've got this whole new revenue and profit stream coming. But I don't think the robotaxi network goes live until late 22. Well, I think there's a chance the robotaxi network goes live in 2022.
Yeah.
I'm still hopeful that that's going to happen. At least it will happen in the Boring Company tunnels, and maybe it'll happen on the roads somewhere.
Yeah. Yeah. Boring Company tunnels I could agree with in the sense that, hey, that's a straight line. It's not dealing with traffic. These are easy. That's an easy win that could introduce people to robotic, vehicle transportation. So that's fine. I would agree with that. I think that would take some time to kind of migrate into. We've done some data and some research polls on this for one, adoption of FSD. In the early this year, adoption FSD was actually pretty high, but our most recent poll was much lower. Mainly, I think it's just fatigue. They just don't know when and if it's going to happen.
I think the prospect of subscription deters people from buying FSD because they don't know what the subscription is going to cost. So if FSD subscription was $99 a month, why would I buy it?
Exactly.
Right. If FSD subscription is $299 a month, okay, I still might buy it. So we don't know what's going to. I think floating the subscription concept might have been a bad idea for the take rate for buying FSD because, my ballpark is all right. $99 3-month trial, $99 a month 3-month trial, and then it's $299 a month after that. You get to experience it. I think once you have it, you literally won't be able to live without it.
Yeah, I would agree with that. Let's talk to, okay, so you're leaning in a little bit on the China performance. Obviously, we saw SNX production down 63%, 82% on SNX deliveries for obvious reasons with the refresh. A little bit slower coming. Hopefully, we'll see X this year. S is, of course, now. We're trying to buy an S, and it's telling me January right now. So... So I'm still
obviously they have a demand problem,
or a production issue. I'm not sure which. It's
I'm joking about the demand problem. They don't. If people are ordering Model Ys and they're being told you'll get it in 9 weeks, right? Yeah. And they're happy, right? It's taken a while to get your vehicle. If it's taken a while, look. You go into a Ford dealer and you want a Ford, it's there. Right? You don't have to wait for them to deliver it. It's there. You just buy the Ford on the lot.
Sure.
Tesla doesn't have vehicles on the lot. They don't have a demand problem.
Yeah, different model. Completely different sales model for sure. But with China and the fact that we've seen such ridiculous numbers in growth with XPeng, NIO, et cetera, that seems to be a real potential competitor in China to what's happening with the Chinese automakers. What are your thoughts on how Tesla will be able to address that in the coming quarters?
I don't think Tesla has any problem selling any car that they make. I think NIO is a promising company. I think they made their 100,000th car.
Yeah.
So, and congratulations to them. I think their battery swap idea is stupid, but I made a video. If you search for battery swap stupid, you'll probably find my video on that. But overall, I think that XPeng, NIO, and BYD all present, and there's probably a couple others that all present reasonable prospects of making EVs in reasonable quantities, but no one is scaling like Tesla. Yeah. Is anybody, NIO just made their 100,000th car. Tesla's making 500,000 a year. Tesla Shanghai will be making 500,000 a year just in Shanghai. Yeah. So, and then that's not assuming they don't build another factory in Shanghai, which I'm pretty sure that they will. The demand for EVs is skyrocketing, and the cost of producing EVs is shrinking. So we're going to see the next generation. This is the thing. If we want to talk in the future and say what's coming, the competition isn't XPeng, NIO, or Ford, or Volkswagen, or Lucid Motors. The competition is the 2023 Tesla vehicle that's going to come that they talked about in Battery Day. Yeah, that's the thing. That's the wrecking ball to the entire auto industry.
Well, it won't be at $25,000. BYD's already placed their Dolphin in at $10,000. It's a 600-mile range vehicle. It
Have
will
you driven
happen
it?
in China. I haven't driven it, but it's there.
Okay, I'm going to bet that the Tesla 2023 Compact is a significantly better vehicle than anything BYD makes. I haven't seen the BYD vehicle you're
Well,
talking about.
I'm okay. It would have to be at twice the price. Let's assume.
Okay, so have you seen a $10,000 car? I've seen the
Well,
car. I've seen the ten
I've
thousand dollar
seen.
cars. I've seen the $10,000 cars they sell in India. I wouldn't get in one.
Well, that's India. I think it's a little different when you look at where China is going with this. I'm not saying that in effort or in the potential that China is going to be outselling Tesla. What I'm saying is that the demand for EVs overall, worldwide, it's growing dramatically. And because of that, when you tell my wife that she has to wait 9 months to get a car, she's moving to the next vehicle. She has no affinity
Yeah.
for Tesla, even though she drives mine.
So
All right, so she's like, okay, I'll buy a Lucid if it's available. Okay, I'll buy a Rivian if it's available. I just want an EV.
those are two vehicles that are completely not available yet, by the way. But no, here's the thing. So there are two types of car buyers.
If it's available, I said if it's available.
So there's two types of car buyers. Okay.
Yeah.
There's the car buyer who needs a car now, and the cars buyer who is like, I really like that car, but I don't need a car. Like I'm the second guy. Like I have a Volkswagen Passat. I get 40 miles a gallon on the highway. I drive 5,000 miles a year. I don't need a car now, right? I want a Cybertruck, and I am waiting for Cybertruck, and I'm not like running out to buy a different pickup truck. I want the Cybertruck, and I'm willing to wait. But your car was in an accident, and you need a car. You can't wait. So ballpark, half the market is I need a car now, and half the market is I'd really like that car. And I would say this, that the concept of the demand for EVs is kind of irrelevant. People want a car. They want to be able to get, or they want to get from point A to point B on a regular basis. And if you can deliver it in an EV and it costs them less and it's a better experience, then they're going to do that. If you can deliver in a robotaxi system and it saves them money and it saves them time,
But Warren,
they're
that's
going to do
years
that.
away. That's
What's
years
that?
away. That's years away. A robotaxi system is
A
years
robotaxi
away.
network is years away. That's true. I'm just saying that we talk about demand for EVs. We talk about an EV market. Right now there's a vehicle market. I need a car. I need a car now.
Yeah.
Or I don't need, or I want a car soon. Aspirationally, if you need a car now, you're not buying an EV because there's no EV that you can buy tomorrow. There's no. Maybe you can buy a Volkswagen ID4, right?
Or
there are
maybe
certain,
a Mach-E.
Yeah. No, I don't think you can get a Mach-E tomorrow. I think the Mach-Es are still in high demand. I don't know how hard it is to get a Mach-E tomorrow. I'm not sure about that. If you can get a Mach-E tomorrow, that's a bad sign, right? Because they're only producing like 2,000 a month or something.
Yeah, 6,000 was their quarter.
2,000 a month, yeah. So, if you're the need a car now category is probably going to buy a gasoline powered car. The aspirational, I would really like this car. They're figuring out what car they want. I want to have a car in the next year or two. I'm getting ready to ditch my car. What am I going to get? And ooh, that Model Y looks nice. Ooh, that Mach-E looks nice. Oh, that Rivian. Like Rivian is coming, right? If you want a really high-end pickup, I think Rivian's going to deliver by the end of this year, right?
Yeah.
And if you're willing to spend $75,000 on a pickup truck because you want to do this really cool off-roading stuff, then you're going to wait for Rivian. You're not going to buy an F-150, right? If you're waiting for the ideal truck. So for those people, it's just waiting until it's ready, and there's no particular hurry. It's when you need a vehicle now that starts to become an issue.
Right, and I think, that brings up, of course, Ford in their scenario. Do you think the Lightning will deliver? They're acting as though they're going to see some deliveries this year. What are your thoughts on the Lightning?
I did not know that. I think that the Lightning is a pale shadow of Cybertruck. It's first of all, I think it's better than in some ways, it's better than a regular F-150. It's got a real problem. It's very, very heavy. I think it's 6,500 pounds for the base model, not quote base model, but the model they're going to be delivering at first. And then the high end model is going to be like 6,800 pounds or 6,800 pounds. So the payload capacity is down. It's very heavy. I have real questions about how long those batteries are going to last. Like, do they have Tesla has a great battery management system so they can get their batteries to last a lot longer. If you spend $80,000 on a pickup, and then it dies in a year in 100,000 miles, you're not going to be, or 75,000 miles, you're not going to be happy, right? So I think there's a real question about whether Ford can deliver a combination of a useful vehicle that's good. And I think there's some promising things about the F-150 Lightning, but we have no idea how long the battery packs on these Fords are going to last. We just don't know.
It's going to, listen, I mean, we're still very early in all of these developments in terms of EVs. And I think the evolution of what we're seeing, that's the beautiful thing, is that we are seeing a lot of what has been legacy automakers actually making a play for the EV market for the first time, and being we're going to look back and say, hey, 2021 was the year when at least the industry woke up to what was happening. And I think that's going to be the scenario. We got to see deliveries, of course, all of these things, including Cybertruck as well. Do you think Cybertruck will deliver next year?
I think just Cybertruck will start deliveries in the first quarter of 2022. Speculation, but I think that's a reasonable speculation. Small chance they deliver Q4, but more likely Q1 of 2022. Yeah. And I am hoping to get mine in Q1 of 2022.
Let's hope you're on the early list, and a lot of people.
I'm number 29,380 or something like that, according to some calculator.
Get that. Yeah, you should be able to get that one.
I ordered in the first hour. I ordered in the first hour.
You'll get one for sure then. I can't wait to see the videos on this, Warren.
And I'm expecting that. I think there's a significant chance. I ordered a dual motor, and I'm expecting a significant chance I'm gonna get an email or a call saying, "Hey, Warren, if you upgrade to tri-motor, we can get you your vehicle in a week. And if you want dual motor, it's going to be 3 months, and I'm going to upgrade to tri-motor."
There you go.
That's the only reason I would upgrade. I don't need tri-motor, but that's what would get me to do it. Yeah. I wanted that bad. Yeah.
Warren, if you look at Tesla right now and you say, what are our potential challenges? What would be, say, one or two for you in terms of challenges in the near future?
Execution is always the biggest challenge. It's just getting it done, getting things going. The biggest factor for me in the future, in the short-term Tesla future, and really the long-term Tesla future, is getting Giga Berlin and Giga Texas up and running, producing vehicles. Because if they succeed in delivering vehicles and getting 4680 battery cells produced, but I actually think the 4680 cells aren't as important as other people think, because CATL is ramping lithium iron phosphate cells like crazy, and that's going to supply a lot of vehicles as well. We just saw a made in China Model Y with lithium iron phosphate batteries. Standard range Model Y in China just went on sale. So I think they're gonna be able to pump out a lot of vehicles. As long as they have batteries, they can pump out vehicles. As long as if they can make the vehicles more efficient. I mean, I think the Berlin and Texas Model Y will be a game changer. The Berlin and Texas Model Y is going to have front and rear castings and structural pack. It's gonna drop about 500 pounds of weight. It's going to cost so much less to manufacture. It's going to be such better vehicle dynamics, such better performance, such better range, that I'm guessing they're going to sell those Model Ys at like 70 or 75 grand initially.
Interesting. Yeah. Wow. That's definitely pricing up the mid-size category for a crossover, definitely into the range of Mercedes and BMW.
That's early. That's just the early version. Is going to be the high performance, not quite plaid version of Model Y. Because of the lightweight, because of the efficiency, we're going to see a high-end version. And they're going to have to price it like 5 or 10 grand at least above the existing performance Model Y. That's my theory.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting to watch. Okay, so I wanted to end on the Tesla stock analysis that you just did on your video, going to 2 million looking at 2 million vehicles, you're thinking by next year.
2022, 2 million vehicles delivered.
So this year, maybe 800 to 900,000 is kind of the number I'm seeing and feeling somewhat comfortable with.
My latest number is 902,000 vehicles.
Okay.
There's some, it's 902,000 something. I think I'm overly optimistic in my calculation. I think I'm giving them too many Model S's and X's in the third quarter in particular. It really depends on how many vehicles they deliver from Berlin and Texas in the fourth quarter. So I'm assuming a total of 20,000 out of Berlin and Texas in Q4. If they're able to do that, I think that gets them to 900,000 vehicles. But I think 860, more likely somewhere between 860 and 900 is my rough estimate.
So if Berlin and Texas slow down any on production and in terms of the plant being available, this is going to affect 2022 in a big way, potentially, because of the ramp period it's going to take in that first quarter.
Yes and no. It depends on the slowdown. If it's a short-term slowdown and then they solve the problem, and I don't think it's going to be that hard for them to ramp Model Y in Texas and Berlin, because they already are producing Model Ys. Sure. It seems like a fairly insignificant change. I mean, it's a material change. It makes the vehicle better, but it doesn't seem like doing front and rear castings is that much harder than doing rear castings. Yeah. So, and they already have the Giga presses and they're already working. So I don't see a major hurdle in getting it ramped. But there's always, the ramp can get slowed by this, that, or the other thing. I think the biggest hurdles are, can they get the batteries? So Drew Baglino, my reason for 2 million vehicles in 2022 is Drew Baglino's comment at the Q1 call that they expect to more than double battery supply from suppliers in 2022. And this is the point. If you're going to make 900,000 vehicles in 2021, ballpark, maybe it's 850, maybe it's 900, whatever. But if you're going to make, let's say 900,000, and you're going to get more than double the cells from suppliers than you got the year you did 900, and you're going to make your own battery cells. Well, more than double 900 is more than 1.8 million.
Sure.
Right? You're talking 1.9 million, maybe 2 million on that. And then you added 4680 cells, which I think leads to another couple 100,000 vehicles at least.
Some good potential.
So it seems to me they're going to, and then some of the supplier cells are going to go into energy storage. So maybe the mix shifts towards energy storage, or the mix shifts towards larger battery packs of vehicles. I don't think so, but that's a possibility. That, to me, it's hard. If you believe the more than double supplier cells, it's hard to see how they don't get to 2 million.
Well, I mean, of course, yes, with the expansion of the plants, the suppliers coming into play, which is, of course, dealing with this ramp up. That feels comfortable, but I'm still a little bit more conservative in about maybe the 1.5 to 1.8 million vehicles next year. If Tesla only delivers 1.5 million vehicles in 2022, would you say that is still a major win for the car company?
Sure. I mean, that's 3x 2 years earlier.
3x 2 years earlier.
But
all right.
So here's what I think we need to watch. So my numbers for Q3 is 236,000 vehicles delivered. And I think that's optimistic. And I think 230 is probably 230, somewhere between 230 and 236 is more likely. 236 is probably a little too optimistic. And then 280 for Q4. And then my revenue numbers are 10.2 billion for Q2, which we're going to know in a couple of weeks. And then over 12 billion in Q3, and then over 15 billion in Q4. So we're going to be able to see, does Tesla meet, like, I put my numbers out there. I'm actually going to make a video about this before the Q2 numbers come in. Yeah. We're going to be able to check me, right? Like James Stevenson predicted 217,000 deliveries in Q2. Well, he was off by 15,000. So, you know, our numbers are tested every quarter. Yeah. So I'm just saying, if I'm right that they deliver 230,000, let's say in Q3, if I'm right that they break $10 billion in profit in Q2, then that's reassurance that I'm on the right path, that we're heading towards where I think. And I really think by the end of 2022, we're going to see, well, or 2021, we're going to see, well, how many vehicles did they deliver, right? And we know it's ballpark 400,000 in the first half of the year, right? It's 180. Production was 180,000 plus 206,000. Yeah. Mm-hmm. So that's like 386. So they're approaching 400,000 vehicles in the first half of the year. They're going to do more than that in the second half, right? So,
yeah, they'll ramp for sure in the second half. Plus, they're going to get some X and Y residual from, later in the year, most likely Q4, I would think. Hopefully, we'll see.
What I'm seeing is
that comes together.
3 and Y production in Fremont and Shanghai is increasing combined about 10% a quarter. That's what I've been seeing. I'm not saying it will continue, but I think that's likely to continue. That's primarily Shanghai ramping and going from 2 shifts to 2 shifts plus overtime to 3 shifts to 3 shifts plus overtime to 4 shifts. There's a step that they're going through to get to where they need to be. So if that increases 10% a year and you get 200,000 you had 206,000 in Q2, so you're going to add 21,000 right there. So that gets you 227,000. And then the question is, how much do S and X ramp, right? S and X was less than 2,000 vehicles. So if you go to 10,000 vehicles from S and X, now you're getting close to my 236 number. Yeah. Right?
Yeah, for sure. Warren, last point. Prediction for Tesla stock price by the end of the year, based on your models of hitting around 800,000 to 900,000 in deliveries, these $10 billion numbers in terms of revenues. I like that in terms of the quarterlies. Do you think we get a $1,000 stock price by the end of the year?
Well, I am terrible at short-term stock price predictions, and I consider that a short-term stock price prediction.
Yeah, sure.
I
sure.
think the current value of Tesla stock is $2,500 a share or more, because I'm looking down the road and saying, I think the stock is going to be $25,000 a share in 2026. What would I pay today for a stock that's going to be worth that much in 5 years? But the question is, when does Wall Street catch up?
Mm-hmm.
Right, because there's Warren's valuation, and not everyone shares Warren's valuation, right?
Sure.
The question is, if I'm correct, which I may not be, but I believe I am, when does Wall Street catch up to the story? So what has to happen for Wall Street to say, wait a minute, we see where this is going now? So I think if by the end of the year, if Tesla delivers, let's say, 280,000 vehicles in Q4, whatever they deliver the rest of the year, if they deliver 280,000 vehicles in Q4, if Austin and Berlin are up and running and delivering vehicles, that is a change in the story.
Yeah.
If FSD goes live and goes out to a wider audience, like maybe it goes beyond beta and everyone who paid for FSD gets FSD version 9.
Right.
And it's good, right? It's not going to happen if it's not good. If that happens and it's good and people experience it, that's a potential story change. So those are
For
the
sure.
things.
Yeah.
And if 4680,
those would be big moves. Those would be big moves.
If 4680 cell production happens and starts delivering, and we start seeing 4680s in the wild, and Sandy Munro does a teardown of a Model Y with 4680s and goes, oh my God, this is amazing. I don't think Wall Street gets Sandy Munro, but it's those things come together. It's sort of like, well, and it's really, I think, James Stevenson's pitch about profitability. If we see EBITDA rising, like he predicts, like $3 billion in EBITDA in Q4, or earnings before interest, taxes, depreciation, amortization. If we see EBITDA jump that high, that is another good indicator that we're on a different path. Like if they're just going to do $1.8 billion a quarter in profit, what's the big deal? But if all of a sudden they've risen to a $3 billion quarterly profit, and then you're looking at it saying, well, why did they go from 1.8 billion in quarterly EBITDA to 3 billion in quarterly EBITDA? And is that trend going to continue? And if you say, they got to 3 billion in this quarter, and if Wall Street figures out, well, Q4 so my theory, here's my projection. Q4 2022 EBITDA, GAAP net earnings are $6 billion. If Wall Street sees that path, right? If Wall Street sees it the way I see it there, at some point this year, if Wall Street sees that path, and then they say, wait a minute, this company is going to be at $2,500 a share at the end of 2022. The calculation is not what is it worth now. The calculation is what would I pay today for an asset that I believe is going to be worth $2,500 a share at the end of 2022.
Right.
And I believe that at the end of 2021, if they deliver what we're talking about, $3 billion in GAAP net earnings in Q4, well, we don't know GAAP net earnings until early 2022.
Early 22. Yep.
We know deliveries. We'll know James' numbers. James has the profit jumping in Q3. So if you see the profit jump in Q3, if we see the GAAP net earnings jump, the EBITDA and the GAAP net earnings jump in Q3, and then we see the deliveries for Q4 is still end of 2022. If we see deliveries out of Berlin and Austin actually happening, we know that the delivery numbers are going to approach 280,000. So I think the question is, can Wall Street connect those dots? First of all, does it happen, right? Does EBITDA does GAAP net earnings start approaching $3 billion in Q3 or 2.5 billion in 2020 in Q3? And then do we see the deliveries coming out of those factories? And that's when Wall Street should be able to piece those together and say, wait a minute, we get it now. But I can't control whether, number one, I believe these things are going to happen, but they might not. And number two, I can't make Wall Street see the obvious.
Yeah, for sure. As a disclaimer, we're not giving you financial advice. We're just doing a lot of analysis here and giving an opinion on how we think this is going to roll out. Warren Redlich, always great to have you on the show, man. Thanks so much for stopping in. We appreciate it.
Thank you very much for having me.
If you guys have not checked out Warren Redlich's channel, make sure and do so. You can just search Warren Redlich on YouTube. You're going to get a treasure trove of information around Tesla, Cybertruck. He's doing all kinds of great videos over there, so make sure and check him out. Also, if you're over at the podcast right now, make sure and give us some stars and some ratings. We'd love to kind of get your feedback there. If you're here on YouTube, make sure and subscribe right here. Hit the bell for more notifications. And of course, if you have an idea for a show, and maybe you have someone like Warren that you think, hey, let's get somebody else on, to TechPath, just shoot us a note to producer@revernetworks.com, or you can hit me up on Twitter @Paul Barron. We'll catch you next time right here on TechPath.